So the bad decisions I made in my life were all about who I was hanging around with, the situations I found myself in. The good things that happened in my life were 100% because I changed my mind about how I thought of the situation I was in. Like, instead of thinking, poor me, everybody's against me, it's, oh, they're gonna hem me up for something else. I literally became an accountable person. I became accountable and owned my own shit, which I'd never done before. It was always somebody else's fault.
What was
right?
that moment like?
It was huge.
Like realizing that
that I'm my own issue. I promise you, I needed psych meds behind that, because I was like, I'm really fucked up. I am really fucked up. And I'm my own worst enemy. Mm-hmm. Like, I am my own biggest obstacle. When I removed everybody else out of the blame cycle, and I really had a hard time reconciling with myself. Like, I really didn't have a lot of love for myself for a while after that, because it was like I could have avoided all of this. I'm Shelly Lyons-Mac, and we're currently in the Pontiac Little Arts Theater, which is a small performing arts space that was built in 1868 and refurbished about 7 years ago into the fashionable little theater that we see right now.
And what do you do here?
I'm the executive director here, which is a whole lot of title and even more jobs. That means that I do everything from take out garbage to accommodate performers and book entertainment and field phone calls and complaints and all the fun stuff.
How did you find out about this place, this job?
Actually, the job really wasn't available. My friend owns this facility, and she's really struggling to keep it afloat. She has a medical background, which has nothing to do with theater or performing, and was just really having a hard time staying open. And so I thought it was a great combination. I have all of the music and art connections, and she has a fantastic venue. So it just seemed like natural progression.
So this director position and this promotion of artists and musicians and things like that in spaces like this, that's what you find yourself, that's what you consider your calling? At least
Yeah,
right
oh
now.
yeah. This is like falling off a cliff. It's easy. I could fall down, and this is what I do. I've been involved in the music industry and performing in Metro Detroit for 40 years. It's hard to consider when I'm only like 32, but 40 years of performing. So I've over that time period, I've met a lot of people in the industry and promoters, and watched and learned anywhere I could get in, took notes. Well, honestly, back in the day, and I'm talking like early 80s, you could win money, a lot of money, singing karaoke. And I drank a lot then. Yeah, I drank a lot. So my friends got me really drunk on like quarter beers in downtown Royal Oak and talked me into singing, and I won like $200, and that's a whole lot of quarter beers. So yeah, I just I was hooked. My history is I was raised in churches prior to emancipating myself at a young age, but I was raised in churches and sang in choirs. I've always, it's cool to hang out with the musicians, like that's where I always wanted to be. So one of my first memories of coming into music, I was a teenage runaway, and there's a spot called the Stone House that's at State Fair in Woodward. my friends in the neighborhood, Little Beirut, which is, 7 Mile and Woodward area, performed there all the time. And they would let me sing. And it was fun. I mean, you get drunk, you get on stage, you sing, whatever. Give me a microphone. I want to be the center of attention. So that was really my first real idea or experience, having like a whole band behind me and being part of like this music conversation, which is a high. It's a drug that people search for, musicians and performers. That's the drug you're looking for. There's nothing on this planet like performing. The high that you get from that there's not a drug on the planet that I've found that's the same. So at that time in my life, I really had no focus. I watched way too much Miami Vice, and I wanted to be Pablo Escobar. And I was really doing a good job at attaining that goal. But I found that I was meeting a lot of really famous people. Detroit is inundated with, you can find a good musician, you throw a rock, you're gonna hit one, right? Unfortunately, like the Motown era, all of those people were stuck in poverty after Motown. They never made money, So in areas like, Little Beirut or Southwest Detroit, it's really easy to find famous musicians and iconic famous musicians, people that played for Motown, jazz musicians that are world renowned, but are living basically in poverty because, during that era, there was no such thing as, a contract for a musician. It was a contract for a record label. They paid you a couple bucks to sing the song and get out of here, So it was really neat because I got to get close to people that really knew what they were doing musically. I didn't know at the time. I didn't have the presence of mind to know that I was under the tutelage of, smart people. It was just a fun thing for me to do. I was, kind of fly by night, so.
So let's rewind to this Pablo Escobar pathway of your life.
Yeah.
Where does Pablo Escobar?
I watched too much Miami Vice. That was like a draw for me. My parents were separated, and my father was like this big, all of his friends were like big gangster dudes, I didn't really understand. Again, I didn't understand the draw, but they were dangerous people. And I'm a danger junkie, So I left home at 13 and never went back, which, I thought I knew everything I needed to know. I should have left myself a note. Yeah, I should have left myself a note. I know nothing now. But I gravitated towards drug neighborhoods and dangerous men. And by the time I was 15, I had dope houses in my name, because I was naive. I was a naive kid. I was hanging out with men twice my age. And I didn't really understand, I was too naive. A kid doesn't understand the motives of an adult person. Mm-hmm. Especially someone that's deviant, right? So I found myself in all of these situations with a lot of money, a lot of cars. Never had a driver's license till I was in my 20s, but I had a ton of cars. And it was just kind of a fascinating place to be. But then I developed a pretty healthy drug habit. So that was a good motivator for some real bad things.
What was it about those days that made it so appealing?
Well, without incriminating myself too much.
Of course. Yeah, right. We're all free here.
Yeah, right. I want to stay that way. I really love my life now. Yeah. But I was, like I said, I'm fascinated with danger. Danger is a high all by itself, And I was around violent people, big drug smugglers, people from other countries that were here smuggling drugs and women and guns and all of that. And I really enjoyed that. Like the whole being chased by the DEA or the ATF really got me excited.
I feel like
at that
perspectives
time.
vary on that.
Yeah. I mean, I was a kid. I thought it was, I was living a movie. The ramifications of the reality of what I was doing, I had no scope of really rationalizing that,
When did that understanding hit?
When Oakland County sent me to prison. I had been under surveillance by the federal government for quite some time. Quite a few years, actually. And I used to steal a lot. I mean, I was a teenage runaway. So, I mean, it just kind of stands to reason you're going to steal. Yeah, they go hand in hand. And I got caught in Oakland County stealing. And it was my first felonies. I had 3 back-to-back theft charges. And
What did you steal?
nothing big, nothing major. However, because I had been under federal surveillance for so many years, they couldn't catch me doing the dirt that I was doing. But there were lots of people that I was with in my endeavors that were high profile on the Fed's watch list. And so when I got in trouble, I was basically given the opportunity to either A, tell them about all of these people that they had in photos. They had a whole portfolio of me. They'd watched me for years. And I could either identify those people, or Oakland County would charge me as a third habitual right out of the gate. That was in 1987, when you could still get good time in prison, unless you're a third or fourth habitual, and then you do flat time. So my first run-in with Oakland County, I got 1 to 5, and then I came home a year and a half later, and went right back to prison for violations. And that cycle continued for me for 20 years, until I got 7 back-to-back drunk drivings. And Oakland County was like, "Oh, we got a place for you, sister." So they sent me back to prison, and I mean, after I've done years in Oakland. They should have a wing named after me. I've done years there. I've literally given the county years.
You want to give?
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, them green bologna sandwiches.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I went back to prison in 2003 for drunk driving, and it took me until 2016 to successfully parole.
What was it like?
Horrible. Horrible. What was prison like, or what was it?
No, what was that moment like to finally
to finally get parole?
Yeah, just to get out.
Believe it or not, I violated parole and probation in every conceivable way and invented some new ones, right? So I had a parole officer that is very famous as being like a drill sergeant here in Oakland County. She's famous. And her and I went around and around like cowboys and Indians for 30 years. And at the end of my my relationship with the criminal justice system, her and I became friends. And the way that happened is that I was living in a 3-quarter house and on parole. And there was only one other woman living there with me. And of course we became friends. And she came home one day high on heroin, back to the 3-quarter house. So I told her, you better get yourself straightened out. So she said, all right, I'm going to go and jump in the bathtub and, I'll be okay. And 30 minutes went by and I didn't hear anything. So I beat on the door and she didn't answer. So I kicked the door down. and she was underwater blue. I got in the bathtub with her, stood her up, and turned on the shower and screamed and beat her in the side of her head until she woke up. And I just decided that I have to do something to save this person, right? Because I don't want it. First of all, I didn't want to get charged. You know, I'm like already considered public enemy number one. So I didn't want to get charged with like involuntary manslaughter or something. Like I had something to do with her ingesting heroin. So I just made a conscious decision that I was going to tell her parole officer, which looked something like this. The next day, during business hours, I called my PO and I said, I have to have a conversation with you and you're going to have to give me as long as it takes to get it out, because all of my bells and whistles are going off. I'm about to snitch, and that's against every code I've ever had. But I told her, and the next day, or no, actually that day, at the 3-quarter house, the management came in and said, you two have 30 minutes to get to the parole office. Like your parole officer's calling you in, and you can be there or you can have a warrant for your arrest for abscond, right? So we both went in, and for the first time in my life, I was on the same side of the table as the parole officers. That pivotal moment changed the dynamic of how I related to the parole office. They enlisted me as a helper, and it changed the way that I looked at parole. Like something went off in my head, like, this is my team for success that I don't have to pay. And I did the math of that, and I thought, I want to be successful. The most successful people have entire teams that make them successful, only they pay them. They have to pay them. These people, I don't have to pay them shit. So I started using them as my team for success. And it worked. Just changing my mind about how I interacted with them, along with, some psych meds, which I was in dire need of. But those two things really just changed the whole game for me. And I ended up being friends with this woman that was my arch nemesis for 30 years. We ended up being friends. I still talk to her.
What's the give us one of the biggest spats you've had with her?
Oh, please. She had me arrested. People now are allowed to take their prescription medicine because people like me went back to prison for that. Like, I have a spinal disease, so I've been on pain medicine for years, and I got sent back to prison for taking my own pain meds. I did an 18-month flop for that. But she's literally come to my house. First of all, she never wanted me to parole to my mother, because my mother is my biggest reason for I'm going to get high, right? Or please give me a drink. So she never wanted me to parole to my mom. She would come to my mom's house and get in a fight with me and my mother. Oh yeah. And my mom was always not on my team, believe me. She was happy to turn me in. But this woman would come and checking up on me, and I'd be and my mother would be in the background going, what are you doing here? And she'd be saying, shut up. Nobody's talking to you. Just wild stuff. I absconded from parole probably 10, 15 times. Absconded. The last time I absconded from parole, I married a guy that owned a trucking company, and he bought us a $180,000 truck, and I went on the road. Because if I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow, Neither does the abscond squad. And I stayed gone. I was on the road for 3 years. I did 3,500 miles a week in 48 states for 3 years until I wanted to murder my husband because we were in a truck together, which is not a good scenario for anybody. And I literally took the almanac and opened and went with my finger and found this little tiny town of 800 people in the northwest corner of Iowa, 80 miles east of the South Dakota border. 800 people, one traffic light. Me moving in. I'm like Elton John moving into this corn town where everybody wears overalls and drives tractors. They didn't know what hit them.
That's great. What thinking back when you had that situation with the parole or the parole agent and your friend, what has that path led you to?
Oh, wow. So when I completed parole, I started doing, they did like this monthly resource thing. It was a panel, and everybody that came home had to come to the parole office and sit in on this thing, and they added me to the panel. So now I'm sitting next to Easter SEALs, executives, Department of Health and Human Services reps, people from Smart Bus, like different resources that are available, and then me. And so the panelists would give this big, talk about here's all the resources we have available, and here's the stuff that we can offer you. And then they would end this whole resource meeting with me speaking. So it began this whole thing of me helping people that are on parole. Like I did this every month. And at one of those meetings, there were 3 people that came in with an organization called Michigan Liberation. It was when they first started, before they even had an agenda. So they heard me speak and picked me up as an employee. And I was one of 4 people in the Oakland County. We were the Oakland County team for Michigan Liberation. And we workshopped with the impacted community here, just a couple buildings down. We had an office. We interacted with the impacted community to help create the agenda that Michigan Liberation uses now. So it led me on a whole path of advocacy for people that have lived my life or are struggling with parole. And one of the biggest messages that I give to people is that this is your team you pay nothing for. Everything they're asking you to do is to help you succeed. None of it is to set you up for failure. It's all things that are, once you do these things, it's one more step towards you being successful. So, if whoever your idol is, Jay-Z or whatever, whoever it is, those people have entire teams. They're not just a success story on their own, So that was like my biggest message, like use these people while you have them,
How much of a change from the life that you started to live on the outside was different from the life that you were living on the inside with the people that you considered friends and family on the inside?
So a lot of those people, ironically, are the rock stars that are out here moving things for us now. One of my dear friends is Monica Janer. I've known her since I was 17, 18. Monica is a legal powerhouse. Her and Mary Heinen are 2 of the women that worked on the legislation that got a bunch of teenage lifers released. I've known both of those women for 40 years, So some of those people that were inside with me, I still maintain contact with. but only, and I don't want this to sound bad, I don't know how to say this, but only people that I know are moving forward. You know, people that are still stuck in the sick mentality that I used to live in, you know, like it's everybody else's fault. Yeah, I can't do that. I can't indulge that.
I think it becomes harder to indulge it when you started to face your own shit.
Yeah, I want to give people
'Cause then
shaken
you're like,
baby
if
syndrome.
I'm not putting it up with my own shit.
Don't make me smack you. Yeah, right.
What were some of the most fondest memories that you have from inside with those people?
Oh, wow. So I used to write music and sing it for everybody, whether you wanted me to or not. And I remember people saying, will you sing for us? And that made me feel amazing. I know, like, just knowing that some of those people really loved me, you know, and that love carried over into life out here, you know, like they knew the mess that I was and still loved me. So they're very happy for me at this stage, you know.
That's a funny perspective you say like that, to know that all of us that are inside, we see somebody walk in the door and know they just walked into a shitty situation, and knowing that, I would say a majority of us look for that day, even though it might be salty, we might get a little butt hurt when somebody else goes home and not us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I know I never wanted to see somebody come back to that door.
No.
Like, ever.
There was my last trip through, I was in quarantine, and in the women's prison, when you have to take medication, you walk outside of quarantine to this trailer. And, you know, in Michigan, the seasons change and it gets dark.
Yeah.
So sometimes at 6 o'clock at night, it's dark. And there were no cameras between these two buildings and hardly any lights. So I was coming out of the med lines and I turned around and there was this girl standing up against the wall in meds, and she looked to be about the same age as my youngest child. So she looked like maybe she was 17, you know, and terrified. And all I could think of was, A, this girl reminded me of my child, right? And B, I was that kid at one time coming into prison. And so I had like 60 seconds with her to try to tell her everything she needed to know to survive this incident, you know, like you need to know this, you know, people are fake, like whatever else I could think of that I could blurt out at this kid. And I didn't know at the time, but she was housed on my wing. So I kind of took her in, you know, like to kind of stick up for her, because at that point I'd been in and out of prison 42 times on a crusty old broad. So I took her in and kind of watched out for her, which ironically is a lot of what the two women I mentioned did for me. You know, they were older, they were doing life in prison, and I was this teenage kid that came in, and they were, ironically, they did a lot of the same things for me. But I met this young girl and kind of mentored her through prison until I had to leave, and I had to leave her there. And it was hard.
Have you?
Oh yeah. She's part of our Linkage community.
Nice.
And she's a rock star. But you know, she did some real dumb shit as a teenager, and ended up doing like 5 years, you know, and yeah, she's a powerhouse now. She came home and never looked back.
What would you say the difference? What would you say to people to kind of paint the picture of what waking up inside to the people that you have around you is like compared to out here?
Cold, sterile. Nothing in there is soft. Not furniture, not the toilets, not the people. Nothing is soft. Everything there is hard and cold. You wake up in prison and you're sleeping on a steel slab.
Concrete.
Yeah, sometimes concrete. On top of this mattress that to this day, I couldn't tell you what it's made of. I don't know what it is. Is it hay? What is it? I don't know what it is. But it's covered in this thick green plastic. You get no pillows. You're lucky if you get a blanket that's big enough to cover you. I'm tall, so nothing is 6 feet tall, so, you wake up with sore spots everywhere from laying on hard things. And then you wake up and you're in this place where it's just like a hopeless place. It's hopeless. I feel like the longer you're there, the further and further you are from your dreams. It's like you leave your dreams at the gate, and the longer you're there, the further separated you are from those dreams for yourself. So it's a really desolate place. It's a place of desolation. And I mean, people are resilient, like people find something to hold on to. People find someone to hold on to, some kind of soft space, whether it's a mental soft space, an emotional soft space, but you look for it. And unfortunately, I mean, that environment, you got to qualify to be there. So nobody that's there is 100% like the best person you ever want to be around, right? Yeah. Including yourself. So, you end up in groups of people that, function in dysfunction,
How was it? How was that distinction? Like knowing, like going to prison and waking up to these people, these other individuals every day, these other women, and realizing or knowing that you're not innocent neither. And that making the comparison, like not everybody's cold-blooded murderers or rapists
and they house you all together. Like you could be like myself, drunk driving, right? Which is not public enemy number one, although I was Michigan's most wanted like 8 times. But because I'm an abscond queen. But it's just a weird place. It's just really weird. And I feel like part of what made me so creative when I was there is that you have to fight. You have to fight to be a creative person. It's like this challenge, Can you maintain a sense of humanity? Can you maintain a vulnerability, I guess? Can you hold on to that piece of your creative self? And it's a fight. I think that's why such great art comes out of prisons, because people are just up against, they're really pushing and struggling and fighting to create something, and it comes out in artwork.
How did you do it?
I blocked everything out. I was a loner in there. I didn't really have a clique. I didn't want one. I didn't play cards. I'm not playing cards with you. I don't want to sit at a table and listen to a bunch of women cackling and bickering over what cards you threw. No, I don't want to hear it. So I spent a lot of time by myself, and rightfully so, because I just came across as kind of lunatic fringe, I used to dress up as a guy named Dave. Yeah. And the officers would take me around to other units as Dave. Like, you will get an escape charge for altering your appearance in prison. And I was rocking Dave. And really, it started out as like making fun of like,
Yeah, how did
The
this
whole
start?
dynamic, you know?
The first time you put on the mask, what was it?
Well, so I had created this character, Dave, outside of prison. And in there, I am my own best entertainer. You could put me in a closet and I'm entertaining myself. And so I was like, all right, I got something for them. And I took the colored pencils and I drew my beard and mustache on, and I put my hair in a ponytail back here, and I got my beanie on, and then I sagged my pants and did the pimp walk, and they were dying. And that's all you got to do for me is just show me a reaction, and that's feeding me. So that's how it started. Like, and the officers were, I mean, I was pushing boundaries. Mm-hmm. Because you can get an escape charge for that, which I have a prison escape charge, by the way. But
you just throw that in.
Yeah, just throw that in there. But it was like, it was just fuel to my fire. Any kind of performing that I could do on any level, I was gonna do it. It was a way of keeping my sanity, I guess.
I see that mindset has transition to out here too, considering everything that you're doing.
Yeah, I love it.
What are some of the things outside of the theater director position that you just acquired? What are some of these other things that you got going on that you've been active in and participated with some of the individuals from outside?
So I work with Linkage, which is a part of University of Michigan PCAP program. I'm a linkage artist and do all kinds of art exhibits with some of the art that I created inside and that I create out here now, which I never thought that I would do. That was baffling to me. Like when someone asks me, well, what do you do? I'm like, I'm an artist, but I'm a functioning artist. Mm-hmm. Like I get paid. I'm not like not necessarily a starving artist.
That's that phrase right there.
Yeah.
What have you ever got hit with that?
If I'm a starving artist?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you say artist, I mean that's a broad stroke, right? Yeah. And it's hard out here for a pimp. Like there's so much art everywhere, and I feel like using the drive and creativity and the determination to succeed that comes from formerly incarcerated people, like we've all given up a bunch of time for nothing. You can never get it back. So I find that people that are in the right frame of mind are really driven. Formerly incarcerated people are super driven because I feel like I'm making up for lost time. Like everybody else I know, had the job and the kid and the house and the 401k. I have none of those things. I was busy investing in bullshit, basically, fleeting things. So planning my future, I never thought I'd live this long, honestly. I was living a hardcore gangster lifestyle. I never thought I'd live this long, for real. So I didn't think that I ever needed to plan for this phase of my life. I'm a grandma. I got 6 grandkids, man. They don't know. They don't see any of that on me. Thank God. I see some of my crazy in them, though.
I was just about to ask that. Like, so how is we heard about some of the people that were in your life that shaped you. Like, what's it like knowing now that you are someone else's vision of what they want to be when they grow up?
So I'm really conscious of that. I don't want to be someone else's Pablo Escobar story.
Facts.
Right? I don't want, because my father was an international drug smuggler. He was a pirate. I didn't know that, but that whole persona came across. All of the dangerous men that he was hanging around with, well, that's why they were dangerous. These guys are in the 70s and 80s. They're drug smugglers, right? They were dangerous people. And that was a big draw for me. And so I am the grandma that shows up with art projects. We bake cookies. Like Granny's the horse that everybody rides on, you know. But I really try not to embody that or idolize that whole gangster persona, which is, you know, so prevalent in
everything today.
Everything, yeah. People watch too much movies because, believe me, the real life story is nothing like a movie.
It never usually is.
Right,
Everybody's
right.
always usually surprised.
Right.
What are some of the misconceptions that people have about formerly incarcerated people?
So I quite often shock the shit out of people. People meet me, I'm very well spoken, I'm an elderly white lady, you know.
Nice fashion as well.
Yeah, thank you. And so they don't see that, and I'm very outspoken about my past. Mm-hmm. I feel like it is my duty to be a spokesperson to educate everyday people that have prejudices. You know, 9 times out of 10, because we know what the population is, right? There's like 4 million people that are felons in this country, and another 3 or 4 million incarcerated still, right? So that's a total of like 8 million people. Most people know people that are felons, but they don't know they know people that are felons, right? And so I just ran into this just last week, this whole scenario. So I went to go scout a musician to perform here. And after he was done performing, he came over to the table to sit with me and the owner. And I don't have any idea what made him ask me this question. But he said, "Are you a felon?" Like somehow, I don't know what else we were talking about, but that part of the conversation stuck out to me because I said, am I? Am I a felon? I'm a felon multiple times over. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. He said, wow, most people wouldn't even say that. And I said, yeah, well, most people don't have books on Amazon about it. I market that shit. You know, I said, I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever. And I think that he wanted to be prejudiced, but he already liked me too much. Mm-hmm. He was already intrigued by me by the time I blew his wig right off. And then said, yeah, I'm a felon. I'm a multiple time felon. Now what? What do you got to say to that, tough guy? Like what? What does that mean? So I feel like people don't want to accept that someone changes unless you're asking them if they've changed, right? So once you're labeled a felon, people want to be like, ugh, because I think people just want something to hate. They want something to direct away from themselves, right? Most people are not, and I don't want to say most people, but a lot of people are just not happy with their own life. And so it's very easy to label somebody else and they're the bad people. Nobody's really a bad person. Nobody really is. Nobody starts out that way. You know, I had to work at it. Took a lot of work for me. So I feel like the misconception is that, you know, felons are uneducated. Felons are always going to be a problem. Felons are dysfunctional, can't ever make it in society. And I mean, the people that I rock with, almost all of them are formerly incarcerated in prison, and almost all of them are stellar rock stars at what they do. Like, even if they never went to prison, they're doing things better than anybody else.
How do those relationships compare to, how do the relationships that you have that you have with formerly incarcerated compared to relationships that you have with people who have never been through the system?
I think that people that have never been through the system or been through the life that I've lived, I can't relate to them on some level. We just don't connect. I think, like, you know, the term like game recognizes game, or I think that people that have been through the system or had to fight to overcome the challenges that are visited upon you after you've been through prison. I don't think that the average person understands how hard it is. It's not easy. I mean, it's not easy, period. Being good at something or finding your path in life is not easy, period. And then when you start out way behind everybody else, you got to fight twice as hard. And so I think that's what makes me closer to my peers.
How has the label of felon influenced your opportunities and relationships?
Oh, God. It's impossible to get jobs, right? It's really difficult to find housing. I can't tell you the horrible places I've had to live because I'm a felon. So I've had to live places where there are slumlords that run it. I've had to live in neighborhoods that, there's a dope house 2 doors down. If it wasn't for the friends that I've made, I wouldn't be living where I live now. And as far as employment, when I came home, I had to create my own jobs. I had to hustle and be willing to clean toilets. So I put ads on Craigslist for housekeeping and created so many jobs that I had to hire people. But that's how I did it, because finding a job and having all the obligations of parole and trying to fit that into a job schedule, was literally impossible. Being on parole was a full-time job.
Facts. I ain't never heard that before.
It really was. It was a full-time job.
That's facts.
I have no driver's license. The state of Michigan won't give me one. I haven't had one since God was a child, right? I finally got one at like 24 and lost it by 26. So I have no license, which makes it difficult to get a job anywhere, makes it difficult to get around anywhere. And parole always has you going to this counseling or dropping over here, and it's never on a bus route. Yeah, it was a full-time job to get through parole.
What does an average day look like to you?
Oh man, it's pretty leisurely for me. I mean, I'm living a cake life. I finally am just happy being me. And so I don't have anywhere to be in the mornings. I don't have a job I got to be at. My job is this job is whenever. You get emails from bands. You find somebody on YouTube you want to book. I mean, it's like on my time, unless of course we have performances here. And then it's in the evening, which is, I'm a night owl anyways. But so my everyday, I get up in the morning, I make my coffee, take my dogs out, and then I might spend a day in my pajamas. I swear to God, I might walk around downtown Pontiac in my pajamas all day, and I don't care. But it's leisurely. I'm finally at a place where I'm able to pay my bills. I'd like to have more money. I'd like to be able to do better than just pay my bills. But I'm not pressed. I live a pretty easy life. I spend a lot of time with my grandkids. Yeah. Well, they still like me. They grow up and they don't like you anymore, you
How
know?
often do you see your grandkids?
I see them a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. My one daughter has five, 8, 5, 4, 3, and a newborn. And then my other daughter has a 18-month-old. So Grammy's fun right now. You know, they're all really young.
Yeah.
So they think I'm the coolest thing ever. And I'm soaking it up while they do. They're my biggest fans.
What keeps you motivated day by day?
This is a big conversation I just had with myself. So my motivation is, that I know I gave away a lot of time. I gave away a bunch of time, right? So I always feel like I'm playing catch up, but it's this thing of like, you have dreams for yourself. And then you work and work and work trying to achieve this dream. And then when you get it, now you got to maintain it. That's where the real work comes in. And you don't want to fall back, right? You've reached this certain plateau and you don't want to do anything that's going to take you back down here. So that's my motivator. Like, I'm always like, I can't let this slip, you know? And it's easy to slip.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with success?
Wow, hit or miss. You know, I throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall trying to figure out what'll stick. From the outside, a lot of people think that I'm really successful, you know. From my own standards, not so much. And I think success doesn't always have to mean financial success. You know, I've overcome a lot of things in my life, a lot of bad things, and ended up, you know, still able to put sentences together. So that's a success. And rebuilding my relationships with my family. You know, I had kids growing up. They grew up without a mom a lot. And so rebuilding and mending those relationships were one of the biggest things that I thought about when I was locked up. I miss them the most, you know. So I have pretty good relationships with my kids now. You know, they got over being mad at me for not being there, and partially got old enough to realize it was probably a good fucking thing I wasn't there, you know?
What's your relationship with failure?
Oh, we're friends. I fail at a lot of stuff. You know, I had to become willing to accept failure, because you're not going to succeed at everything you try. You're just not. It's just that's like the laws of nature. You know, I feel like in order to succeed, you got to fail a lot. It's you know, for instance, I'm working on a huge event for downtown Pontiac, where we'll be blocking off the streets, have 4 stages everywhere, and I tap in with my team every Sunday. And some of the stuff that we try to do through the week doesn't work. And we got to get back together on Sunday and pivot. You know, so I take my failures and then figure out how I can do it better, what I got to change to make it work the next time.
What advice would you give if you had the younger you sitting in front of you?
Oh my God.
Do you think it would work?
Honestly, right. I was just going to say, honestly, I don't think I would have heard a word of it. I know for a fact that along the way, people gave me advice. I know they did, because as a teenage runaway, I ran into a lot of bad people, but I also had some good people, you know, safe places where I could sleep, people that would help me and feed me and, you know, whatever, you know, look out for me. And I didn't listen to a word of their good advice, none of it. thinking back, like even my grandparents probably gave me a lot of the best advice I ever had in my life, you know. But I didn't hear it then. Only now that I'm old is it all like rushing back.
Is there something that sticks out?
Well, one thing that I use a lot that my grandma used to say is pretty as pretty does. Meaning that somebody can look fine as hell and their whole attitude and what they do and how they move can ruin it all.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Facts.
So it made me realize that that you can't look at people. You have to watch how people move. You have to pay attention to who they are and what they do, to really know whether that's a good person or not. I'm always attracted to the worst kind of men. So like, you know, like I'll be like, oh, that guy's so fine, and come to find out he is the worst jerk I've ever met in my life. Dysfunctional, immature, you know, can't keep a job, all of that, but he looks good, you know.
What is it about this place that you personally love?
So I really am into antique stuff. I love old things, ironically. But this place it's a very old building, and even though everything here is only 7 years old, it
doesn't feel that way. It feels
no, it doesn't. It feels very, very old because the designer Robert that did all the remodeling in here, he went back and fashioned things from that era, from the 1860s. So everything in here is like true to form of what it would have looked like if you decorated it in the 1860s. So I really don't even know what my long-term plan is. I know that I'm really addicted to talking people into doing fun stuff with me. You know, I'm good at it. I just put together this enormous event with a huge music production company, and everybody's doing it for free. I'm not paying a soul. Yeah, I have a knack for that. Is that my long-term goal? I don't know. I don't know if that it is.
When it comes to the industry, how did you find yourself in a position of being able to have such good working relationship, professional relationships with the people that you have now?
I've always been a person that says what I'm thinking. Like, you don't have to wonder if I'm plotting and conniving, because I'll tell you, I'm about to take your money. Hey, I'm going to take your money, and you're going to smile about it, you know? And I think that people respect that, especially in this industry. You know, if you can find somebody that, you know, there's not any hidden agenda, I think people gravitate towards that. They want to be around. It's refreshing for people to be around somebody that really says what they're thinking, you know, that really does what they tell you they're going to do, you know.
What advice would you give someone working in the field of music or creative or more fostering relationships of artists and musicians? Knowing that it's not just this, how you were explaining to me earlier about the difference between a band that's playing for background music and a band that's playing for a performance.
Yeah, I guess probably know your lane, like know what you're trying to do. For instance, this theater is a 130 seat theater. So for me to go and try to pull, even though there are some just phenomenal musicians in Michigan, but to go and try to pull a band that's playing in a local bar and bring them here and think that I can make money is not. That's not what this place is. This is not a dinner club or you know, like a local brewery or something. So there's just different business models. And I would just say to upcoming artists or people that are working in the field, find your people and stay in that lane and get good at it. before you try to move on. You know, figure out the ins and outs of, start at the bottom. It's the best way for me. And I know for a fact that a lot of the knowledge that I have in this field is only hard earned. You can't read it in a book. They can't teach it to you in school. It comes from years and years and years and years and years and years and years of relationship building and, you know, trial and error and failing. And it's a rich environment that requires time to master, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That big word again, time, you know. It's like, what do you invest in? And it's never too late. It's never too late. I'm a grandma, for crying out loud, and I'm doing this. So it's not like I think that there's an age limit on it. I really don't believe that.
What do you think the age limit would be?
I don't think there is one. I mean, if Betty White can still be rocking and telling dirty jokes at 90 something. Yeah, right. I think it's all about, in this industry, it's about confidence in moving like you have confidence, you know, like you know what you're doing, fake it till you make it type stuff.
Do you have any last departing messages?
Parting words would be that, if you think you're defeated, you are. So in my specific personal life, like, I could have adopted that whole idea that I've been to prison, my life is over. I'm a felon, I can't do anything. That's bullshit. I surround myself with can-do people. Meaning I don't need anybody around me telling me how I can't do something. I can tell myself that all day long. I got all them voices already built in telling me how I can't do something. I surround myself with people that think this way, forward motion people. And how you think about something is everything. That's literally what changed my thing in parole. I realized that my thinking was fucked up, that I probably had a mental health issue, which I did. You know, I was a teenage runaway in the 80s and never went home. Of course I had mental health issues. I went through drug addiction and human trafficking and all kinds of violence. And I mean, that causes trauma, that causes mental illness. So realizing I was my own problem, addressing those problems, like owning them and figuring out how to pull the ball of yarn apart, you know, and then realizing that everybody around you can be an asset to you if you think about things the right way.
Did you think, when you heard about the Hidden Nation and why we wanted to talk to you?
First of all, I was really impressed with the whole idea of calling us the Hidden Nation, because we are. No, not everybody is loud and proud like I am, you know. Not everybody's out of the closet, so to speak. And the idea of creating a narrative where someone can come home and, instead of me having to be at a parole office where they can hear me, that this could be distributed everywhere, and that that you're accumulating this resource database for people, because we are inundated with incorrect data about resources that are available. We come home and we think all this shit's available, and it's not. You know, and we don't even have real accurate visions of how long it takes.
Especially for those of us that did it a long time.
Yeah, you just become more and more out of touch, you know, like you get further and further away from the world. In reality, it's upside down world in there. you know, and you'll hear all kinds of stuff about how the world operates out here. None of what you see on TV is the way it operates, right? Hardly any of it. And a lot of what the resources that are given to you by the Department of Corrections are 100% inaccurate.
What do you hope to see stem from the message that the Hidden Nation is meant to send?
The building of a community, right? Because I think, well, I know that most people that go into prison are dysfunctional. They don't know how to be good neighbors. They don't know how to be good community assets to their community. They just don't. It's not something that is just readily taught to people anyways, you know? And so to begin your journey into prison as an alienated person, right? Feel isolated before you even got there, and then heap all these other problems on your head, and you're released and you're expected to function. Only you don't know where you belong
Do everything
anymore.
that everybody else does.
Yeah, you don't know where you belong anymore. You just don't. You feel out of place. And so to create a sense of community for people, to highlight the fact that somebody else has been through what you're going through, maybe harder, maybe easier, but that there's somebody out there that you can relate to, or a place that you could go, or a community you could contact that would say, we got you. We got you. It's going to be okay. If I'm okay, you're going to be okay. And that's really what people long for. And you don't have to be a felon to long for that in your life, you know?
A lot of stuff that is available specifically for us is available to the regular general public too.
Yeah.
And with all of the resources that are out there, that should be a situation where there should be no excuses for there not to be able to find a resource, especially if you are out there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've come across in my time of, just working with some of these organizations is that they are so busy with their own shit. They're so busy, trying to fight for their own money, for funding and things like that. And when it comes to making sure that the world knows about them, that's on the agenda, but it's not necessarily like the main part of the agenda.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about adding in the mix of, well, it can't just be one organization, like y'all got to collab on this, like y'all got to work together.
Right.
Then it's a scramble to, well, who gets their name at the top?
Yeah.
Compared to who's part of the event.
That's part of why I stopped working with criminal justice organizations, because they, not just in my case, but, I've been in rooms and stood on a stage and told my story, right? And there are a room full of funders, and I get paid $50 for being there. And based on my story, the organization that I'm there with is getting $20,000, $30,000 donations, and none of it's filtering down to me, the storyteller, or to people that need resources. It stays in that organization. It stays, it's to pay salaries for people. Some of them have never been incarcerated, right? This is just their job, right? But I just feel like a lot of that, people get used up by, like you said, they're searching for funding. They're searching for, they want to use there's an organization right now that recorded my story, and they use it as part of their mental health spiel to get funding for their mental health program. Although I'm not sure how many people they've helped mentally.
That's fair.
Yeah. And they never asked me if they could use it forever. They recorded it, and they've been using it for years. And so that, it really gave me a stink-ass attitude towards working with those kind of people. So that's why I gravitate towards organizations that are for us, by us.